Hello guys, and what is up? This is Silence Pew Pew, and we're coming at you with another video. Today guys, we're going to be doing D&D, I believe, part 5 now. So this one will be the official video to get us caught up. I'm 100% positive of that. It may be, I'm trying to shoot for 15 to 20 minutes long. Hopefully it's not too much longer than that. Anyway, so basically where we left off was that Magus and Dio had made it to Winterhelm, which this is the lovely town of Winterhelm. This is a quick drawn up thing. Each of these squares, they're not exact, but they're roughly 10 by 10, maybe 12 by 12. So if you recall from the last video, Magus had stayed down behind the stairs there. So he went through a door, went up the steps, and went to the room. He came back down and hanged out by the door for 8 minutes or so, and some people walked in and started having a conversation with the barkeep at the time. More than likely you're watching all of these videos back to back or in close succession to each other, but either way. So they pretty much have, that's all Magus does. He goes back up to his room and then decides to go take a nap. Dio and him, or to bed really. Dio and him talk about how that seemed a little suspicious. A couple hours into the night, since Dio Treespeak is a elf, he just has to do a trance for sleep. But that doesn't cancel his full long rest, as you know. So Dio then decides that never mind. Dio didn't decide anything. While Dio was in his trance, he heard some noise. He heard like a window opening, and he heard a muffled yell. It was kind of real quick, and then he didn't hear anything else. He didn't hear the yell anymore, but he could hear multiple footsteps and what kind of sounded like banging on walls and beds and stuff like that. At first, Dio wasn't sure what was going on, and I may have described it a little bit differently, where I think he thought two people were getting it on. Either way, though, he eventually came to the realization that it was a kidnapping. He sees a person climbing out of the window in the room beside him, to his right specifically. So his room would be like here-ish, and the other person's room is this way. So his here, there, if you're looking at this map in the end. So anyways, he sees a person sliding down this rope with a body on their back, and then he sees another person climb out the window, close the window, pull down the rope, all that stuff, and then they go and they walk off back this way. At this point, Dio is like, what the shit's happening? And in order to not ruin his long rest, he decides, you know what? I'm just going to go back into my trance because I need to rest up. I don't know what that was. If it comes for me, I'll deal with it then. And in the morning, I'll tell Magus. Simple as that. So a little bit later, so a couple hours later, honestly, Magus and Dio both emerge from their slumber or 8-hour rest, whatever you'd like to call it, and they talk about some of the things that happened last night. At this point, as well, Fang, Oros, and Corel have all awoken. They wanted to wake early and start their journey. Again, Fang had those nightmares yet again. I am mistaken, though. In the last video, I told you that Fang started to get rid of the blood coins, but it was not until this morning that he realized there's something seriously wrong, because he was up to 2 exhaustion levels at this point, and he was working on a 3rd, but he made a save this morning. He did not get any. He has been awake. His character has been awake for roughly 72 to 80 some hours now at this point, and he has not gotten any real sleep. So he has 2 levels of exhaustion, and he's just barely made the save for the 3rd level of exhaustion. So he then decides, you know what, I'm going to get rid of these blood coins because they are seriously bad. Something is wrong with these things. So he gets rid of them, as I described in the previous video, of throwing them into the woods and then burying a couple. So as they go on through their day, they eventually get to the Winterhelm blockade as well. This time, though, they use a little bit different of approach, seeing as it is, I believe, 11 o'clock. Maybe it was about 12 o'clock. So they have a conversation for a good 10 to 15 minutes, and eventually they decide they use diplomacy to basically get their way through. So Corell happens to be a noble, one of the noble families of a large city nearby. Winterhelm and them would do a lot of trading. That is mainly where their trade route goes through, because Darmesh is the closest city to the trade port, and also one of the closest cities to... Let me actually show you. Oh, wrong one. One of the cities close to... There it is. The capital. So as we can see here, up here is Winterhelm. Okay? And here is Darmesh, and then here is Ashton, which is a port city, which is where most trade comes from. So a lot of the trade that gets to the capital here comes from here. So basically the trade comes through here, Darmesh goes up to this trail, goes to Dragonlock if need be, or Peacevon. Or goes up to Winterhelm. So that's kind of how it goes. Not very many people travel this path up here. That's kind of more of a... kind of like, think of like a trail up in the woods that you'd have. Like, these are actual paths, either stone or dirt or something along those lines. Whereas this is kind of like a couple people have walked there and the path is just kind of drawn out. Anyways, this came in locked. We'll put that over there for now. Oh, yes, and by the way, this is, so if we look at everything here, actually I want to show you. So I marked things on the map as they found them. So here's Riverdale, here's that monk temple I was telling you about that was up on top of that mountain that was nearby Riverdale. So this is the first town that they came from. All of the party members are, I believe, from these two towns, actually, and then one of Dio is from the woods in this area. One of these two areas, I don't remember exactly. Either way, Riverdale is here. The Cobalt hideout is roughly here, and they fly from the Cobalt hideout all the way up to here, which is where the tower is, roughly, and then Winterhelm is here. So that is what the players have done so far. They were originally going to travel to Darmesh, however, when they found out about Corell, they changed their mind. Going back to the story now, the current story anyways, they were able to get their way past basically by saying, like, hey, I'm here from a noble house, and I heard that there was some stuff going on here, and the order, it basically tells them, like, we didn't ask for any help, we're going to have to go talk to our commanding officer, because we might not, I don't think we can deny a noble from entering a town under the same king. So they were very worried about that, so they talked to their leadership, and their leadership decided to let them through. Meanwhile, they were walking, though. Magus and Dio were in this town, kind of exploring. So a bit of what they were doing was trying to find out who this order is, what's going on, who knows what. So they went to the marketplace and did a little chit-chatting, didn't find much, but were able to find some info out. They did notice, though, that Magus was not getting answered as much as Dio, even though Magus is much more of the speaking and Dio is more of the kind of keeping his distance. The reasoning was because they don't really like half-elves. I threw that to my characters as the pitch of the beginning of the campaign. I was listen, half-elves, half-orcs, and tieflings are not fond races. Not many people like them. Humans don't consider you human, and orcs and elves don't consider you them. And tieflings are weird because in my version of tieflings, and this could be real or not, I kind of assume tieflings are basically like at some point in someone's lifetime, your ancestors before you made a deal with a demon, a devil, or something along those lines to get something now and get cursed later on. So basically, let's just say, okay, I want to be the king of this country. And the demon's like, okay, cool. Snaps his fingers, boom, you're the king. But your son and all of his kids now have a chance of being tieflings. Because two tieflings mating can make a human. A tiefling and a human can make a human or a tiefling. You know, two tieflings can make a tiefling, obviously. Or two humans could make a tiefling, technically, if one or both of them have tiefling bloodline in them. That's just kind of how it works in my setting here. Anyways, so nobody really likes those three. They're kind of hated. If I didn't explain this already, which I think I did in the first video. But we're going to continue on. So they, Magus and Dio, are not really getting the answers they were seeking. They eventually stumble into the town hall, I guess, Capitol Hill, whatever, I don't know. Something along those lines. I think I called it town hall. And it's more or less not like a castle, but kind of a palace. Let's go with a palace. Yeah, we're going to call it a palace from now on. So they stumble into the palace, and they're greeted by 2 guards and 3 doors. It's a small room. It's like a 10 by 5-ish room, 10 feet wide, 10 feet, or 5 feet deep, a little more than 5 feet. So combat in this room would be a little hard, but we could manage it. So they deal... They're like, yes, citizens, what can we help you with? And they're like, hey, we want to talk to the Order, because somebody in the marketplace had told them that the Order was here. And they said, oh, well, we're not recruiting for the Order, but they're in that door, so go ahead. And they go this way and are greeted by 2 more people. Magus does ask a few more questions, basically, hey, what's behind that door, and what's behind that door? And the guard's just like, well, that's where the king is, and that's where the king's staff is, or the Lord, and the Lord's staff, my bad. And he's like, oh, okay. And the Order's talking to them, and they're like, yeah, we're not giving out you guys. They're asking the Order questions. They're like, hey, what's going on here? And the Order's like, nope. We're not going to tell you. We don't want anybody else to know. We're still trying to get the situation under control. And in a couple days' time, we'll have more people here, and the issue will be solved. You don't need to worry about it, citizen. Just continue on with your life like normal, and we'll go from there. So that's pretty much what happened there. Eventually, they do a few more things. They do an errand or 2 for one of the shopkeepers in the area. And then they decide, you know what, let's go wait down here for our friends, because we don't have anything else to do, and they should be arriving about now. So they head down there, and this is about 10 o'clock, maybe 10:30 in the morning at this point when they get here, and Magus is standing there for a couple minutes, and he's like, what's this building here beside me? And I tell him, it's a jewelry shop. And he's like, oh, cool. Well, I've got this thing. So he walks in and shows them this black-looking pearl. And she's like, oh, cool. That's very interesting. And I think she gives him 250 gold for it or something like that. Or 300. And he's like, great, now I'm rich. And then he walks out, and that was it. And then they waited there for about an hour and a half. Excuse me. About an hour and a half. And they see a man run by, an Order guard come down from here, run past, go up here, disappear past the inn, and then they see him run back down around them and then go back to the blockade. And then a few minutes later, Fang, Corel, and Oros and Kent all show up. Oh, if I didn't explain, Kent is the little midget skeleton that follows Oros around. I think I did say that, but maybe I didn't. So they all meet up, and they're like, okay, well, the Order the men at the blockade, Corell says this, the men at the blockade told me I had to go and talk to the order in the palace. So they all head up there. They try to all squeeze into this room, and they talk to the order, and the order basically is like, listen, we didn't ask for your guys' help. We don't need your help. You guys are here as guests, okay? You're not here to do any solving or anything like that. If there becomes a problem with you, then you will be asked to leave. And if you do not leave, you will be forced to leave. Do you understand? And they're like, okay, we got it. But if there is anything we can do to help, just let us know. And the order's like, fine. If we find anything, we'll tell you. Okay, so going forward then, at that point then, they all, the order lieutenant who is there asks Oros to stay behind as the rest of and he gestures to the door for the rest of the party members. A few of them leave, but Corell stays behind. And he says, listen, we don't want any issues with you especially. Do you hear me? We've seen your kind before. We know what you are and what you do. And since you're here with this other noble, we're not going to take any action against you unless you give us a reason to. Basically, the reason that he's done this is because they can easily tell he's a necromancer just by his body, by how he carries himself. Plus, he has a freaking skeleton beside him. And you can kind of tell. I would imagine that most necromancers would smell of death for the most part, you know. Something along those lines. You can easily see that they are of the dead liking anyways. So yeah, they kind of, then at this point they all kind of all split up. They kind of all go their own way. So Corell and Fang decide, you know what, I'm going to go back to the inn. The reason Corell wants to go back to the inn is because he wants to just kind of rest for the rest of the day, wake up in the next morning, and then go fight. And then continue on looking for stuff. Because he was badly beat in that one fight. He lost all of his lay on hands, so on and so forth. Fang, obviously experiencing 2 levels of exhaustion still, and just walked for a day and a half, completely straight basically, and is like, I have not gotten any sleep at all. I need to lay down and relax as well. So those two both head back to the inn. Magus and Dio kind of searched this whole area for honestly only about an hour, in just looking for what they told me was a suspicious looking building. Where's the headquarters of whatever bad juju is going on in this town? And Oros and Kent go to the market and buy some foods, stuff like that. When Fang and Corell arrive at the inn, Fang and Corell both notice a very, very distinct familiar face that they've never met before, but they've been described or have heard it described to them a bunch of times. I'm talking about Maggie. If you don't remember, I think I mentioned her in the first video. I might not have. I'm pretty sure I did, though. Maggie was Magus's mentor, I guess? Was Magus's mentor when he was younger. And he's been looking for her ever since, and he heard that she was in Winterhelm, so that's why he came. Corell goes over and approaches her and talks to her for a bit and explains to her about Magus and how Magus is looking for her. And she tells him, oh yes, just tell him to come by. I'm actually going to be leaving soon. Tell him to come by up to the homeless shelter right here. This is where I work. I'll be there preparing dinner for the next couple of hours and then serving it. And Corell's like, okay, great. I gotta go. And then he runs out the door and attempts to find Magus because he knows Magus is kind of in this area. Fang, however, is like, I can't be bothered. I need to go to bed. He goes to bed. Or, yeah, he basically goes to bed. But it's, yeah. Oros kind of finishes up his thing, and as he is walking, he gets to about here. He sees Corel, Dio, and Magus all running past him. Corel eventually was able to find Magus and tells him, and Magus is like, oh my god, I need to go talk to Maggie now. And like I said, that took about an hour from when we left here. So they didn't get as much searching done as they wanted to. They were going to search for about 3 hours and then move on to the next area and search for another 3 hours-ish, and so on and so forth. So they do some more talking. Oros decides, you know what, I guess I'll follow these guys since I don't know where the inn is. So he follows them walking up to here. Dio and Magus takes off full-on sprinting before anybody can do anything. Corel tries to grab him but misses, and Corel and Dio are now in a chase behind Magus. Magus arrives first, of course. Corel is slowed by his armor, and Oros, like I said, just walked. He walked down this way, saw them turning up this way, and then continued to walk and was like, I'll find him eventually. So, we get here, and Magus frantically busts open the door and looks around. And he just sees a bunch of basically homeless people. He can't seem to find anybody. He stops somebody and asks them, like, hey, do you know where Maggie is? And she kind of gives him in a little bit, yes, I do know where Maggie is. She's back there. She's making us dinner. And, you know, he happens to stop an older lady who's a little homeless. And he goes back and, knocks on the door, and a male voice calls out and says, dinner's almost ready. Just give us a couple more minutes, please. And then he eventually, he opens the door and starts talking to Maggie, and Maggie's like, listen, Magus, I've got some work here to do, but if you want, meet me at, I think I called it, the Dancing Olive, which is right here. And she tells him all this stuff, and he explains to her, like, yeah, listen, I just got here actually last night, basically. Kind of snuck in trying to find you. And she's like, okay, because she explains to him, like, how have you been here for almost 2 weeks at least and not know anything about this town? And then he explains to her that. Anyways, so that happens, and then as they're all kind of leaving, Corel kind of offers, like, hey, what can I do to help this homeless shelter? This is so awesome that you guys are doing this. I didn't know these things existed. And they're like, yeah, this is kind of the only one in the area, and, Mr. Nelithar is he's not the owner, but he's the main contributor per month. He donates like 115 to 150, or 115 to 150 gold a month, depending on what we need. There are other benefactors, but they're normally like 5 or 6 gold a month, which is great, but that's only enough for like 1.5 people, But the other Mr. Nelithar, he kind of is in charge. He's our main benefactor. He's not in charge. So Corel is like, wow, this is amazing. What can I do to help? And they're like, listen, I'm sorry, there's not much you can do. You can set up this way, but we can't help today. We have kind of a strict policy. We can't just let people come in and help because we don't want them to. Basically, she was getting at, we don't want you to poison people or kill the poor, because a lot of people would like to do that. For a couple of reasons. And I'm sure you can draw some conclusions why people would want to kill off homeless people or less fortunate or whatever you want to call them. Anyways, so the party then kind of resets itself, and they all kind of go back to the inn. This has been a couple hours now. It's been roughly 2, so it's probably like 2 or 2:30, Maybe almost, it's probably 3 or 2:30. And so the party heads back to the inn. Corell finally decides, you know what, I'm going to go to sleep, and that he's got a meeting with the person the commander of the order for this area. He told him that he gets off right before curfew, and he can talk to him on his walk home, and Corell agreed to that. So they kind of go rest at the inn for a bit. Oros actually, instead of resting at the inn, he buys a room here, asks for the best room, which includes a servant, might I add. Only 2 of these rooms exist. It includes a servant for most of the day, but not all the day. He also asks the servant to run a bath and clean Kent for him, his little... his midget skeleton. While he does this, he goes out and buys a horse. There is a horse pen right here. I actually drew it in. I just didn't have it drawn here. This isn't the most up-to-date one, but it's right there. And he buys a good horse, one of the faster horses. I think the fastest horse that they had here, which basically I think I said either gave like +5 or +10 movement. I don't remember exactly what, but with 65 or 70 movement. 70 movement sounds like a lot. 65 I think is what I'm going to go with. Anyway, so he does that. He kind of keeps his horse. He feeds it. He tells the stables to keep it and pays the premium price for upkeeping his horse. And if you haven't noticed, Oros has kind of got a lot of money laying around. So, yeah. Dio decides he's going to go and just relax for the rest of the day. It's been a crazy, eventful day. And such. Actually, I missed a part. So when they were walking back from here, right about here, they got surrounded by 3 people who were walking at the same speed as them. So 2 people came in front of them, walked at the same speed, person came behind them. Corell was still back here trying to figure out how he could help. Oros, Dio, and Magus were all walking this way to get back to the inn. So they kind of were like, what's going on here? And then they hear a voice say, hey, don't say anything, just keep walking. Okay, we know what you're doing, we know what you're looking for, and we have answers. But if you stop or you talk to us, we're just gonna walk away. So Magus kind of gives a little head turn to see if he can't see the person who's behind him. And he looks back and he sees a human with this almost like breathing mask over top of his mouth. So when this man speaks, Magus can't even tell he's speaking. Like, he can't see, he can just hear. And the 2 people in front are just kind of, they don't look like anything special. Again, they're both human and one's an elf, but they're not wearing this mask either. He basically tells them, like, hey, listen, the order is the reason that all of these people are disappearing. This wasn't really a problem until the order came. Sure, there's been some crime before the order came, but it really stepped up once the order got here. We know about a lot of information that you probably don't. We have a spy network built into this city, and we want your guys' help. And he's like, listen, we'll give you 100 gold if you guys destroy that blockade out front tonight. And Magus is like, well, yeah, sure, we'll do that. And then he tells him, like, listen, okay, this is where you get your gold. Meet us at noon tomorrow at the inn at this table. Okay? And that was good and done. And that was right around here when they stopped talking. And they kind of split up into their own ways. Magus kind of looks around and notices that he can't find the 3 people anywhere as they just disappeared into the crowd. So anyways, they get back to the inn now, and then that all happens where Oros goes out and does his thing. Magus kind of readies himself. He takes a short rest, if you will, but doesn't really gain anything from it, and so does Dio. So at this point then, Corell comes back, takes a short rest as well, and Magus heads out to go to his dinner with Maggie, which was happening at 5 o'clock-ish, and Oros wanted to was kind of looking around this area, trying to see if there was anything that he might like, but he didn't have a whole lot of time, so he had to go back to the inn, so he wasn't out past curfew. And then eventually, Corell, like I said, he made his way back as well, and he's getting himself ready for his night with the Order Commander, which is actually an Order Captain, but he doesn't know that yet. But either way, so Dio does stay in the inn and just kind of relax in there. And Fang, same thing with him. He's still just relaxing in his room. He's taking it very, very easy, not doing much. Maybe cleaning his armor, fixing it up a bit, so on and so forth, his sword, something along those lines. But really just kind of hanging out in his room, not doing a whole lot of activity. Same thing with Dio. He's probably just doing a little bit of that. Oros is kind of having a lot of fun with his servant, and eating and stuff like that. And then Magus goes to his dinner. He talks with Maggie. Those two have a good time. They kind of connect a little bit, find out what Maggie's been doing, what Magus has been doing, and Maggie's trying to figure out how Magus is all of a sudden has so much money that he's willing to give 50 gold and pay for dinner and all this other stuff. And the night comes to an end as the restaurant closes down 20 minutes before curfew. So they leave, and there's a bunch of people outside because they're all leaving this restaurant, and Maggie hugs Magus and says, "Listen to me, this is not a safe place. You need to leave as soon as possible. I mean, tomorrow morning, get up and go. Just disappear, go back somewhere else, stay away from Winterhelm." And then, before Magus can realize what's going on, he's like, "What just happened?" And then as Maggie releases, he attempts to reach out and grab her, but just misses her. And then he pushes his way through a couple people and looks, and she's gone, and he can't find her anywhere. And then he returns back to the inn. And at this point, Corell would have been walking by right before the restaurant was let out, and is kind of waiting up here in the market area, doing some browsing, filling up some of his rations before they close, and then waiting for the captain to come out. So the captain comes out, and they walk all the way back to this place here. They talk about a few things like, "Hey, listen, man, I can help you. Okay, I've got some good, detective skills. I'm a pretty good fighter. Me and my friends here, we can help you guys discover whatever is going on and stuff like that." And then he's like, "Wait a minute, what's the Lord doing?" And the captain's like, "Well, the Lord, he kind of hired us to, just take care of it, and he's dealing with the other stuff. He doesn't have time to deal with this issue, so he hired an external group to help out." And Corell the whole time is like, "This doesn't make any sense." He's thinking this in his head. He doesn't say it out loud. He's like, "This is crazy. Why would the Lord of his people not care about his people?" And Corell is just like astonished by this, and he's like, "This doesn't make any sense. Something is going on here. I think the Order is the problem." So Corell gets back to the inn, and at this point then, he knocks on Magus's door, and Magus, Dio, and Corell are all talking for a bit, and he's like, "Lay, guys, I think the Order is the issue here." And Magus is like, "Well, you may be right, because we just had a conversation with somebody a couple hours ago who wants us to take out the blockade because they think the Order is bad. And they're all coming to this realization that, you know what, the Order is the problem. We need to eliminate the Order somehow. We need to get rid of them." So they all actually do a meeting up in Oros' room, because Oros' room is huge, where their rooms are like an 8 by 5 room. Oros' room, though, is I think 15 by 20. So, just think of that for size. So they go up, they have a chit-chat in Oros' room for quite some time, and they come to the realization, you know what, we need to do it, and we need to do it in 8 hours. We need to go to bed now, and we need to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, go out and do this, and then get back to our inn. And wake up again then with everybody else once curfew's over. So curfew is from 6 to 6. And that's what they found out. So they do this, they sneak, they come to this plan, they all wake up around 2, probably a little before 2, a little after 2, whatever the issue is, and they go down to Magus's room, they all sneak out the window, and they all, as best they can, stealthily run this way back to the blockade here. And at this blockade, they come in from back here. They, obviously, like I've said, this is a open, plain area. There's not really any hills. There might be some dips, but there's not anything crazy. But there may be some high grass in this area, but most of the high grass around this area would have been cut down for purposes of the Order being able to see. At this point, I gave the players a surprise round, but they've started way back here. So a lot of them, unfortunately, aren't able to do anything because they don't have any ranged stuff, or they don't want to make loud noises. Like, one of the players actually specifically said, like, listen, one of my abilities literally calls thunder here. We're not that far away from the town. I don't want the whole town to wake up, or maybe some Order people who are nearby to hear that and come running this way. We don't want to deal with more than we have to. We're here to destroy a blockade. That's it. So a couple of them waste their turns running down here, and one of them actually decides, you know what? I'm going to pull out this wand that I have and use it. So he pulls out this wand of wandering items or something, wand of wonder, yes, and just points it and says, do something, wand. And if you're not familiar with that wand, it can do a bunch of random stuff. Like, it can make you smaller, it can make your enemy larger, it can cast a fireball, it can, I think, throw gems at you or something like that. It can do a bunch of different things. Well, he casts it and rolls, I believe it was a 71. And that is fireball. So he casts fireball at this dude, and it detonates and blows up everything in this area pretty much, and kills this horse. All of these guys are badly hurt by that. They were not ready for it. It was a surprise round, like I said, and they're all now basically at half health from this fireball detonating on them. So then the Order kind of readies up and charges back. They have some combat. It's not going too well for the heroes. They're able to drop one of them pretty quickly, but the heroes seem to be taking a lot of a beating. Corell took a huge beating. He actually used most of his healing yet again in order to try to try to not go down. Dio actually had to transform into an animal using his wild shape during this encounter. And yeah, like I said, they're able to pretty much easily take it. They're able to take down the Order here. They decide to set the barricades here on fire. They release the horses. They search some of these covered carts, finding a bunch of saddles and rations and military kind of cargo supply. They release these horses and stuff like that, but Dio and Magus decide, you know what? I want a horse. I'm going to take one. So each of them take a horse, and they run off like an hour away from here on a horse and drop off their horse and hide it somewhere. And they're like, okay, I'll come back for this, I guess. And they set the other horses free, but the other horses kind of just like mosey around this area. They don't really run. They just kind of stay away from the fire, and that's pretty much it. And we're all caught up now. Next time that you guys see a D&D thing in the inbox, it'll be the whole thing. You'll see us actually playing. I was going to live stream it, but I've decided that is probably not a good idea. I don't have great upload speed, so I don't want to make the game or the video real cruddy. So we'll see how it goes. Anyways, guys, thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys all in my next video.